Perfect Days is simply put an amazing movie. It follows a character named Hirayama as he goes about his daily routines with precision and a sense of quiet joy. His life is not too complicated, not from an outside perspective. In fact, the outside perspective of his life would normally point to him being a lowlife or someone who has failed. Hirayama, however, does not ever justify his life to the audience. He never explains to any character or to himself how he ended up as a toilet cleaner, but frankly, it doesn't seem he cares about this. He's very quiet and collected, but we find out later in the film that he isn't exactly that far from wealth. His own sister is shown to have at least a considerable amount of money. She is married too, and has children. Traditionally, this is what a character who has succeeded would have: a good career, children, and a spouse. Even a character who had all these things and didn't believe they were successful would eventually realize over time that they have all these things to be grateful for. Hirayama has no wife or children and a career that only pays just enough for him to get by. Once again, Hirayama doesn't defend himself because he knows that he is fulfilled. He finds his job as a toilet cleaner fulfilling. It doesn't matter to him if no one else recognizes this. We see this exemplified in the quiet moments of help that he offers people. First is when he helps a kid back to their mother. This act goes rather unappreciated, but then again, Hirayama is never looking for that. The job of being a toilet cleaner is actually a necessary job in society that is often looked down upon and underappreciated. Even if we were aware of the importance, we may still look at these people who have these jobs as people who have failed. But that isn't true in the slightest, and it's in the moments where Hirayama does receive appreciation, like helping a tourist. It's a small act, but despite his quietness and the fact he doesn't look for appreciation, I think you can still see that he is happy for once for someone to say thank you to him. But then we get to something which I cannot stop thinking about ever since seeing this movie for the first time. It's such a small thing, but it makes the world seem so beautiful that you would never want to leave it. Hirayama is playing a game of tic-tac-toe with some unknown person. They have simply left a piece of paper in the restroom, and after each cleaning, one move is done in the game, and that's it. This doesn't reveal anything down the line. We never get to see who is placing that paper there. It exists for itself, and that is beautiful. It shows a genuine connection between Kurayama and another person, because despite Kurayama's secluded life and his very non-social demeanor, he does like being around people. He likes having connections because he is human. He just doesn't do so in the way that is usually expected. But this movie doesn't treat him as weird or bad for it. Instead, it shows it as just who he is, and there's no problem with that. There's no problem that he connects with people on a different level. This may make it look like he is lonelier than the average person, but is that really true? His coworker, who is much more talkative and brash, feels lonely. His niece feels lonely. Hirayama feels lonely, because that is another part of being a person. But they all inhabit much larger communities than themselves, even if it is hard to always see. But Hirayama is no failure at life. He has just simply not done all the societal constructions of what supposedly makes a successful life. He is still enjoying his happiness, even if it is fleeting, because happiness is a fleeting thing. It comes and goes every day, but Hirayama is able to etch out a living, freeing himself from many of society's heavy burdens. But he is still not free from that society. Who can be? A recurring visual in this film is the Tokyo Sky Tree. It is a towering structure, hundreds upon hundreds of meters in the air. I myself have actually been there and went as high up as a tourist can go. The feeling of the structure is that it serves to flaunt the wealth of Tokyo. Of course, it does serve as an actual broadcast tower, but it remains so visceral a sight. It makes all the buildings around it feel so tiny, and a human is almost nothing standing next to it. This juxtaposition of this height of engineering and money, compared to the very humble home and life of Hirayama, changes the perception of this film. Despite trying to separate himself from the society, it still looms over him and displays its full power. So what is one in this world? Hirayama claims that there are multiple worlds, and that they do not interact with each other. Yet, I feel this movie proves this wrong. The worlds do interact. It's just that the worlds higher up do not help the lower worlds, meaning there isn't much mixing. Hirayama has taken this to heart. yet everyone lives together. Hirayama's co-worker, Takashi, is well aware of these inequalities too, except he is more willing to fight against it. Takashi is a little desperate and may not always display the kindest of actions, but I don't think we are meant to find him as unlikable, because it is understandable that he wouldn't like working as a toilet cleaner. While we come to admire Hirayama, most of us probably aren't lining up at the help wanted sign at the nearest restroom. But Takashi has lacked the money to drag himself up from this hole his whole life. Of course, he wouldn't be happy with the situation. And he isn't a bad guy at all, he just desperately needs change. But his only avenue towards that change is money. And I wonder if this movie is attempting to make a comment on the generational divide. Where Hirayama is from, hard work is seen as virtuous. One's whole life should be dedicated to working hard. Just working hard. What else is there? Takashi is of a different time. Hard work isn't hated now or made fun of. What is different is that people are not as willing to dedicate their lives to it anymore. We are not seeking to spend our entire youths and middle-aged years in dedication to something to only have 1 or 2 decades left for ourselves. We see how much the world has to offer and feel betrayed that we're not being offered these opportunities. This economic inequality still exists as heavily as it ever did. Hirayama has accepted this as his life, and is finding the parts to enjoy himself. I don't think he represents an idea that we should just roll over and accept the societal order. Not at all. I just think the movie shows different ways of how individuals navigate this societal order, in which case Hirayama is quite respectable, and as I have said, his job is fulfilling to him. He doesn't find it demeaning, and we shouldn't think that either. What this movie gives us is respect for the people in society that we often look down upon, to show that we only think lowly of them because of imagined ideals. So, imagine differently. Toilets will always need to be cleaned, and the people who do it deserve respect, and no one should be seen as lonely or an outcast just because of that fact. Now, one last thing before I wrap up this review. While this movie deals with wealth inequality and societal constructs, it deals with ideas much deeper and less easy to explain. We are treated to sequences of Hirayama's dreams during the movie. They aren't coherent though, they mostly just reflect the memories of the day, showing brief images overtaken by sunlight and the shadow of a tree's branches. I believe this reflects the fleetingness of life, something I have already brought up. Life is short, and at some point we may realize that we are no longer working towards a bigger goal anymore. We are just living. And even if that is comfortable, sometimes we may think about what all this really offers. Have we stopped progressing? Hirayama isn't going to receive any promotion. This is furthered when Hirayama holds a discussion with a man who knows he is going to die soon. There's still so much to find out, so much to experience, but we become trapped as opportunity, one after another, disappears. Throughout this film, Hirayama takes pictures of the same tree every day. He prints these pictures, and every day he adds these pictures to a collection. Who will appreciate this work after he dies? Most likely no one. No one else will care about the detailed documentation of a tree at a city park. Regardless, he still does this, not because his work is eternal, but because he enjoys it, knowing that everything comes to an end, even our lives and our work. But that isn't to say we should do nothing, because, to put it simply, kondo wa kondo, ima wa ima. Next time is next time, now is now. Life happens at every time. We only live in the present, so let's focus on that. The future will never come. All our friends and family are in the present, and so are ourselves.